So we've been talking about the dimensions of Noah's Ark. How big was it? And that they measure it by cubits. But what is a cubit? I know that it's not a foot long because this is a ruler that I would have today. The cubit is obviously much longer. So how do you get a cubit? Well, from what I understand, a cubit would be the length of your elbow to your fingertip. So if I wanted to measure something, I would go, that's a cubit. But there's also what they call a long cubit, and I think that's what this stick is. A long cubit would be elbow to fingertips plus the width of 4 fingers. So if I lay that down, that's for me longer than this cubit. So if I was building something and I had several different people that were building the same thing and said it needed to be thus and so cubits, and they were using those measurements, depending on how tall you are and how long your arms are, it might be different. So they developed a standard and they would have a measuring rod. So let's build one. Something that I think we often forget. Noah was told to build an ark, and he said he made it from gopher wood or maybe cypress wood. And I think we forget that it starts out as trees. So let's talk about that for just a second. This is some wood I have split down. It's I think it's from an ash tree. Came from a tree in my neighborhood, but it starts out, it has bark. Then I literally split it, and after I split it with an axe, it's very rough. It's not very usable. You'll get splinters off of this. I actually spent a long time working on this other side, and it's smoothed out quite a bit. You can see it still has the bark on the sides, but it's a lot smoother. It took a lot of work to get there. This is another piece that I've been working on quite some time. I actually used machines on this one. We're going to try not to use any power tools today. But it's much smoother. It's square. I can actually then take this and start to run it through my other machines and make boards out of it. So you would take a tree and you would start to work it down until you had a workable piece of wood, and it took a lot of work just to get there. Let me show you what I have next. So after spending quite a bit of time and working those pieces of tree down, you end up with something that's actually a usable board. So I thought it would be kind of neat to take some of this wood that I literally took from logs, and I milled it down to boards and turn something like this into a cubit measuring stick. So that's what we're going to do today. And as much as possible, we'll see if we can do it with hand tools instead of power tools, because Noah, he didn't have power tools. So let's get started with that and see what we can do. And I think it might be a fun project that you can do as well. So we're going to have to do a little bit of math here. The Hebrew long cubit, which is the one we're going to go for with Noah, since it is in the Hebrew Bible, would have been 20.4 inches. And so I was thinking, well, how do I figure out 4 inches? And this is where fractions come very important in construction, because rulers are usually given in inches, and then they're broken down to quarters, eighths, sixteenths, 32nds, and 64ths. And I happen to have a ruler that goes to 64ths here. So I started thinking, okay, well, how long is 0.4 of an inch? Because I work in sixteenths and 32nds. And so I did some math. If you divide 7 by 16, which would be 7/16 of an inch, you get 0.4375. That's pretty close. But if you go to 32nds, down to 13 32nds, which is just a little less than 7/16, I get 0.40625, and that's pretty close. So 13 divided by 32, 0.40625. So that's how fractions work. So we're going to make our cubit stick 20.4 inches. So I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to measure out that length so that I can finish with a cubit that is 20.4 inches. 20 13:30 seconds. So I'm going to cut this just a little bit on the long side. Alright, I'm going to take the plane. That's pretty close. Okay, so if you want to stop there, you can. And in fact, if you already have some wood that's already dimensioned and usable, you could just use this. I wanted to show you, if we started from tree, you can get down to this. So Noah building the ark is possible, even with just hand tools. You have what you need to be able to make something even as detailed as this. And I think that might be why it took him 100 years to build the ark. So I'm going to take this down just a little further and shape it and make it look more like this, just because. You can do what you want to do, but I'm going to work a little bit more on that, and I'll show you a few more tools. This is a hand plane, and I'm going to get out a spoke shave and do some work. So might find it interesting. Anyway, I'll show you that. So I have here a tool called a spoke shave. I'll show you how it works, and you just spend time like peeling potatoes. Just work a little bit at a time, and it takes wood off. So we'll just round this over so you can see just in a little bit we've already got a round edge on there. And you just keep going. It just takes time. Again, why did it take 100 years to build the ark? When all you have is hand tools, things just take longer. Alright, so I have finished shaping this all down, and I kind of made a little hand on it. I figured, why not make it sort of similar? Anyway, all I really need to do now is spend some time sanding it and get it nice and smooth, but that's the use of that spoke shave. If you wondered, the spoke shave is used to shave the wheels, the spokes on a wagon wheel. Anyway, we'll sand it down smooth. We'll go from there. So there it is, the Cubt Stick. Pretty close, and it's definitely something that you could make. It doesn't have to be fancy like this. Like I said, if you just have a piece of wood, you could just cut it 20.4 inches, which is basically 20 7/16. If you have a tape measure, you can measure that and cut it. Then you'll have your own Cubt stick. Then you can get the idea of 300 cubits by 50 cubits by 30 cubits. I have to confess, I almost broke this one. It's too skinny here. So I set out and made another one, and this one is much better than the first one. It looks a lot more like this. As my dad always used to say, once you do something, then you'll know how to do it. But if you want to, you can make one that's very simple. This is just a 20 7/16 inch piece of pine that I already had. You could just cut it to length, and then I set out and I put 3 finger marks on it just to put some delineations, and then 2 fingers and then 1 finger down at the end so that you could see all the different markings on there. So it's one of those things that you can do however you want to do it, but again, I set out to make another one because I wasn't real happy with the first one that I made. So I hope that's been interesting to you, learning a little bit more about what the cubit is and how Noah built the ark.